I hope everyone had a very reinvigorating break. We're continuing with our reading of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it definitely is a kind of samadhi, isn't it? Yes. Just staying absorbed in the text. There's no harm in it. We have to put our attention somewhere, so this is a highly authorized place. It's hearing Lord Chaitanya directly speak, hearing Srila Sanatana Goswami directly speak, hearing Srila Prabhupada directly speak. Let's speak for all the acharyas. Prabhupada mentions it in a purport earlier in the Bhagavatam, where he says Narada Muni has kindly appeared in this chapter. And that's the experience, that it's absolute and direct. We're continuing at the Madhya Lila chapter 24 explanations of the Atma Rama verse, and I'm going to take up at verse number. Being attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna, such yogis become great saints. At that time, not being hampered by the yogic process, they engage in unalloyed devotional service. Atma also means endeavor. Being attracted by Krishna's transcendental qualities, some saints make a great endeavor to come to the point of rendering service to him. The transcendental position cannot be attained by wandering up and down from Brahmalok and Satyalok to Patala Loka. If one is actually intelligent and learned, he should endeavor for that rare transcendental position. By the force of time, one attains whatever material happiness is available within the 14 worlds, just as one attains distress in due course of time. But since spiritual consciousness is not attained in this way, one should try for it. This verse was spoken by Narada Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.18. Narada Muni was speaking to Vyasadeva, who was morose even after he had compiled all the Vedic literatures. In this connection, Narada Muni advised Srila Vyasadeva to try to attain devotional service and nothing else. Those who are eager to awaken their spiritual consciousness and who thus have unflinching, undeviating intelligence certainly attain the desired goal of life very soon. Those who are eager to awaken their spiritual consciousness and who thus have unflinching, undeviating intelligence certainly attain the desired goal of life very soon. The word cha may be used in place of api, which gives emphasis to something. Thus it means that without sincere endeavor in devotional service, one cannot attain love of Godhead. Devotional perfection is very difficult to attain for two reasons. First, unless one is attached to Krishna, he cannot attain devotional perfection, even if he renders devotional service for a long time. Second, Krishna does not easily deliver perfection in devotional service. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.6.18, Muktim Dadati Karichit, Srila Shukadeva Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna readily grants liberation but does not very readily grant perfection in devotional service. This means that Krishna wants to see that a devotee is actually sincere and serious, and that he does not have ulterior motives. If this is the case, devotional service can very easily be successful. Otherwise, it is very difficult to obtain from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This verse appears in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. For those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. This is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita 10.10. For an explanation, see Adi Lila 1.49. So there's a great purport at 1.49, where Prabhupada says that about the verses quoted there also, Tesham Satata Yuktanam, and Kaviraj and Prabhupada says in this purport that devotees are like scientists who come together to discuss the results of their research work. And in that discussion, then they discover new things, and devotees are like that too. Another meaning of Atma is dhriti, or endurance. A person who endeavors with endurance is Atma Rama. With endurance, such a person engages in devotional service. The word muni also means bird and bumblebee. The word nigranta refers to foolish people. By the mercy of Krishna, such creatures, such as a sadhu, spiritual master, by the mercy of Krishna, such creatures contact the sadhu, spiritual master, and thus engage in devotional service. Bumblebees and birds. Right? You got to preach to them. My dear mother, in this forest, all the birds, after rising on the beautiful branches of the trees, are closing their eyes and not being attracted by any other sound, are simply listening to the vibration of Krishna's flute. Such birds must be on the same level as great saints. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.21.14. This statement was made by gopis who were lamenting in separation from Krishna and studying how the inhabitants of Vrindavan were enjoying life like saintly persons. O good fortune personified, O original personality of Godhead, all these bees are chanting about your transcendental fame, which will purify the entire universe. Indeed, they are following your path in the forest and are worshipping you. Actually, they are all saintly persons, but now they have taken the form of bees. Although you are playing like a human being, they could not forget that you are their worshipable deity. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.15.6. Krishna and Balaram were just on the verge of boyhood and were entering the forest of Vrindavan when Krishna began to offer prayers to please Balaram. All the cranes and swans in the water are being enchanted by the melodious song of Krishna's flute. They have approached and are worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead with full attention. Alas, they are closing their eyes and are becoming completely silent. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.35.11. In the day, Krishna went to the forest of Vrindavan, and at that time the gopis, being morose due to separation from him, were lamenting in this way. Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Palindas, Pukashas, Abhiras, Shumbas, Yavanas, and members of the Kasha race, and even others who are addicted to sinful acts, can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, due to His being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto Him. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18. This verse was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami when Parikshit Maharaj asked him for a description of the creation. While offering obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shukadeva Goswami described the unlimited potencies of Lord Vishnu, who can purify the low-born creatures mentioned here. The word driti is also used when one is fully perfect in knowledge. When, due to having obtained the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has no material miseries, he attains Mahapurna, the highest level of perfection. Dhriti is the fullness felt due to the absence of misery and the attainment of knowledge of the Supreme Lord and pure love for Him. The lamentation that accrues from not obtaining a goal or from losing something already attained does not affect this completeness. The lamentation that accrues from not obtaining a goal or from losing something already obtained does not affect this completeness. This is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A devotee of Krishna is never in a miserable condition, nor does he have any desire other than to serve Krishna. He is experienced and advanced. He feels the transcendental bliss of love of Krishna and always engages in his service in full perfection. My devotees, having fulfilled their desires by serving me, do not accept the 4 kinds of salvation that are easily earned by such service. Why then should they accept any pleasures that are lost in the course of time? In the material world, the living entities are disturbed due to their flickering position. A devotee, however, is fixed in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, the master of the senses. Such a person is to be considered situated in endurance and patience. The word cha is for emphasis, and the word api is used to indicate an aggregate. Thus, it is to be understood that even dull creatures, birds and illiterates, can also be situated in endurance and engage in Krishna's devotional service. The word Atma is also used for a particular type of intelligence. Since all living entities generally have some intelligence, more or less, they are included. Everyone has some kind of intelligence, and one who utilizes his intelligence is called an Atmarama. There are two types of Atmaramas. One is a learned scholar and philosopher, and the other is an uneducated, illiterate, foolish person. By the mercy of Krishna and the association of devotees, one increases his attraction to and intelligence for pure devotional service. Therefore, one gives up everything and engages himself at the lotus feet of Krishna and his pure devotees. I, Krishna, am the original source of everything. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my service with love and devotion. Women, fourth-class men, uncivilized hill tribes, hunters, and many others born of low families, as well as birds and beasts, can engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who acts very wonderfully, and follow the path of the devotees and take lessons from them. Although the ocean of nescience is vast, they can still cross over it. What then is the difficulty for those who are advanced in Vedic knowledge? This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.747. Lord Brahma said this when speaking to his disciple Narada about the wonderful characteristics of Lord Vishnu. Simply by chanting the glories of Lord Vishnu, one crosses the ocean of nescience, even though one may be low-born. Considering all these points, when one engages in the service of Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna gives one the intelligence by which he can gradually progress toward perfection in service to the Lord. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Do any of you quote that verse a lot? Yes. So does Krishnadas Kaviraj. To be elevated to the platform of devotional service, the following 5 items should be observed: association with devotees, engagement in the service of Lord Krishna, the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, the chanting of holy names, and residence at Vrindavan Mathura. Okay, let's go through the list. 5 items. Association with devotees. Check. Engagement in the service of Lord Krishna. For you guys. Check. The reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Chaudhary, close enough. Check. The chanting of the holy names. Check. And residence at Vrindavan. Haribol. 5 of 5. One's dormant love for Krishna gradually awakens if one is a little advanced in one of these 5 items and is intelligent. A panch madhe ak swalpa jadi hoy subhuddhi janira hoy Krishna prema doy. One's dormant love for Krishna gradually awakens if one is a little advanced in one of these 5 items and is intelligence. Subhuddhi. The power of these 5 principles is very wonderful and difficult to understand. Even without faith in them, a person who is offenseless can awaken his dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected with them. If a person is actually liberal and intelligent, he can advance and become perfect in devotional service, even if he has material desires and serves the Lord with some motive. Shall I repeat it? Okay. All those who said yes, you can listen. Everybody else who didn't respond, Cover your ears. If a person is actually liberal and intelligent, he can advance and become perfect in devotional service, even if he has material desires and serves the Lord with some motive. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Devotional service is so strong that when one engages in it, he gradually gives up all material desires and becomes fully attracted to the lotus feet of Krishna. All this is brought about by attraction for the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Satyam dishatyartitam artito nirnam naivartato yat punar artita yata sayam vidate bhajatam anichyatam ishabidanam nijapada palavam. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desires, he undoubtedly does so, but he does not reward anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition him again and again to fulfill further desires. When one has other desires but engages in the Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at his lotus feet, where one will forget all other desires. Another meaning of the word Atma is one's characteristic nature. Whoever enjoys his particular type of nature is called Atmarama. Therefore, all living entities, be they moving or non-moving, are also called Atmarama. The original nature of every living entity is to consider himself the eternal servant of Krishna. But under the influence of Maya, he thinks himself to be the body, and thus his original consciousness is covered. In that case, by the word cha, the word eva is meant. The word api can be taken in the sense of aggregation. Thus the verse would read Atmarama eva. That is, even all kinds of living beings worship Krishna. It is here mentioned that every living entity is Atmarama. Temporarily covered by the influence of Maya, the living entity serves his senses, which are represented as Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Madha, Matsarya, lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. In the material condition, all living entities are engaged in sense gratification, but when they associate with devotees who follow the regulative principles, they become purified and awakened to their original consciousness. They then attempt to satisfy the senses of Lord Krishna and engage in his devotional service. Living entities include great personalities like the four Kumaras, and also low-class foolish people, trees, plants, birds, and beasts. The devotional service of Vyas, Shuka, and the four Kumaras has already been well celebrated. Now let me explain how immovable living entities like trees and plants engage in the Lord's devotional service. Everyone is eligible to receive Krishna's mercy, including Vyasadeva, the four Kumaras, Shukadeva Goswami, low-born creatures, trees, plants, and beasts. By Krishna's mercy, they are elevated and engaged in his service. Krishna kripadi hetu hoite sabhar udoy, Krishna guna Krishna hai tahare bhajai. I'm going to repeat this verse because it's too nice, and try not to faint when you hear it. If you do, we'll have stretchers just like in Jagannath Puri to pull you out of here. Everyone is eligible to receive Krishna's mercy, including Vyasadeva, the four Kumaras, Shukadeva Goswami, low-born creatures, trees, plants, and beasts. By Krishna's mercy, they are elevated and engaged in his service. Purport. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.32, wherein the Lord says, Mami parta vipashrita yepi su papayonaya, striyo vaishastata shudras tepi yanti paramgatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. Everyone is eligible to become Krishna's devotee. One simply has to be trained according to the approved process. It is the work of Krishna's confidential devotees to turn everyone into a Krishna Bhakta. If the confidential devotees do not take up the task of elevating everyone to Krishna consciousness, then who will do it? Those who claim to be devotees but do not engage in Krishna's service to elevate all living creatures to Krishna consciousness are to be considered Kanishta Adhikaris, people in the lowest stage of devotional service. When one rises to the second platform of devotional service, his business is to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Those who are active in the Krishna consciousness movement should not remain in the neophyte stage, but should rise to the platform of preachers, the second platform of devotional service. Devotional service is so enchanting that even the first-class devotees, Uttama Adhikaris, also come down to the second-class platform to preach and render service to the Lord and for the benefit of the whole world. This land of Vrindavan, Vrajabhumi, is glorified today because your lotus feet have touched her earth and grass. Your fingernails have touched her trees and creepers, and your merciful eyes have glanced upon her rivers, hills, birds, and beasts. The gopis have been embraced by your arms, and even the goddess of fortune desires this. Now all of them are glorified. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken by Krishna to Sri Balaram at 10:15:8. Must be Dhenukasura, right? My dear friend, Krishna and Balaram are passing through the forest, leading their cows with their cowherd boyfriends. They both carry ropes with which, at the time of milking, they bind the rear legs of the cows. When they play on their flutes, all moving living entities are stunned, and non-moving living entities experience ecstatic jubilation by their sweet music. All these things are certainly very wonderful. Purport: this is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-19. As Krishna wandered in the forest with Baladev, and the two of them wonderfully played on their flutes, all the gopis became very much attracted. Thus they praised the Lord's activities, describing how he was enthusing all the plants, birds, hills, water, everything. The plants, creepers, and trees were full of fruits and flowers due to ecstatic love of Krishna. Indeed, being so full, they were bowing down. They were inspired by such deep love for Krishna that they were constantly pouring showers of honey. In this way, the gopis saw all the forests of Vrindavan. This verse is from 10:35-9. Kiratas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abiras, Shambhas, Yavanas, and members of the Kasa race. Do many of you quote this verse? A lot? So does Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And even others who are addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. I have already spoken about 13 meanings of the Atmarama verse. Now there are 6 more. Combined, these make 19. Purport: the 6 further meanings of the verse are based on the following meanings of the word Atmarama. 1. Mental speculators. 2. Those engaged in different types of endeavor. 3. Those who are patient and sober. 4. Those who are intelligent and learned scholars. 5. Those who are intelligent but illiterate and foolish. And 6. Those who are conscious of their eternal servitorship to Krishna. I have already explained 19 different meanings. Now please hear further meanings. The word Atma also refers to the body, and this can be taken in 4 ways. The 4 divisions of meanings of the word Deha, body, are 1. Aupadika Brahma Deha, the material body considered as Brahman, with designations. 2. Karma Nishta Yajnikera Karma Deha, the body engaged in ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedic injunctions. 3. Tapodeha, the body engaged in austerities and penances. And 4. Sarvakama Deha, the body engaged for the satisfaction of all kinds of material desires. It's funny, the body has different names according to how it's being used. One in the bodily conception worships his own body as Brahman, but when one comes in contact with a devotee, he gives up this mistaken idea and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Those who follow the path of great saintly mystic yogis take to the yogic gymnastic process and begin worshipping them from the abdomen, where it is said that Brahman is located. Such people are called Sharakaraksha, which means that they are situated in the gross bodily conception. There are also followers of the Rishi known as Aruna. Following his path, they observe the activities of the arteries. Thus they gradually rise to the heart, where subtle Brahman, Paramatma, is situated. They then worship him. O unlimited Ananta, better than these persons are the mystic yogis who worship you from the top of their heads. Beginning with the abdomen and proceeding through the heart, they reach the top of the head and pass through the Brahmarandra, the hole on the top of the skull. Thus, these yogis attain the perfectional platform and do not enter the cycle of birth and death again. From 87, Prayers Personified Vedas. Those who are in the bodily conception mainly engage in fruitive activity. Those who perform yagyas and ritualistic ceremonies are also considered in the same category. However, when such persons come in contact with the pure devotee, they give up their fruitive activity and fully engage in the service of the Lord. We have just begun performing this fruitive activity, a sacrificial fire, but due to the many imperfections in our action, we are not certain of its result. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead Govinda, which you are distributing. Who said that? Sages at Naimisharanya. From this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-12 which was spoken to Sutta Goswami at the meeting of the great sages in Naimisharanya. The great sages were headed by Shaunaka, and Sutta Goswami was speaking of the glorious activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead at that meeting. At that time, all the rishis assembled there neglected to complete the ritualistic ceremonies because there was no positive assurance of the results. All the performers were coated with black ash due to the large amount of smoke coming from the fire. The tapasvis, those who undergo severe austerities and penances to elevate themselves to the higher planetary systems, are also in the same category. When such persons come in contact with the devotee, they give up all those practices and engage in Lord Krishna's service. The taste for loving service is like the water of the river Ganges, which flows from the feet of Lord Krishna. Every day that taste diminishes the results of sinful activities acquired over a period of many births by those who perform austerities. As long as one labors under the bodily conception, he must fulfill volumes and volumes of material desires. Thus a person is called Atmarama. When such an Atmarama is favored by the mercy of Krishna, he gives up his so-called self-satisfaction and engages in the transcendental living service of the Lord. When he was being blessed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj said, "O my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent material position, I was performing severe types of penance and austerity. Now I've gotten you, who are very difficult for the great demigods, saintly persons, and kings to attain. I was searching after a piece of glass, but instead I have found a most valuable jewel. Therefore I am so satisfied that I do not wish to ask any benediction from you." That's from the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. In addition to the 19 meanings of the verse mentioned previously, there are these 4 further meanings when the word Atmaram is taken to mean those laboring under the bodily conception. This brings the total to 23. Now here of another 3 meanings which are very suitable. Purport: the 3 further meanings of the verse are understood when 1. The word cha is taken to mean in due course. 2. The word cha is taken to mean eva, and the word api to mean censure. And 3. The word nirgranta is taken to mean one who is very poor without money. We'll take a few reflections or questions. Yes, Mahendra Prabhu, and then we have Gopal, and we have Yadutama. Okay, we've got a bunch in here. Is there anybody on the outside? Okay, Brajaras Bhavana. Okay, Akshina Mangala.
So it's a repeat of a question from the previous session for a little more elaboration, because this again we read this verse about the which was there yesterday, the quote from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This time it was also in Bengali about the 5 most important, potent items, and that if someone without faith even comes close or is touching one of them, if his intelligence is not offensive, will awaken his love of God. So the question was here, the word is Shraddha Dure. If the faith is far away, even then, if one doesn't have faith, one will attain love of God just by a small contact. But the 10th offense says it's offensive if you don't have complete faith. So that was the question. Because here, if you don't have faith, but if you're not offensive, you'll attain it.
Even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. So maybe they haven't understood that yet. Devavrata, are you in the house? I need the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, please. Even though we don't have the new one. Look up the verse. What's the verse?
I have that verse, the new one. I had the same question yesterday.
Did you look at the commentaries?
I wrote to Lokaram Prabhu, and he sent me. I said where
insider trading.
Insider trade.
Okay, go ahead.
So my question then was why it's non-offensive, because the word in Sanskrit
is. So, let me ask you: did you find that verse and get the commentary for it? Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I asked. Can you send me the verse and the commentary? And the last 5 items have inconceivable and astonishing power. Let a person be far, far away from having faith in bhakti. If he is offenseless, just a little contact with one of these 5 limbs can bring him to the level of power. So why sadhya, which is offensive? He says, Sri Jiva says, sadhyam refers to persons without an offensive mentality. And Vishwanath Chakravarti repeats the same line and adds that such persons are not required to pass through the stages of bhakti, beginning with Shraddha.
So that comes to a verse in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm trying to remember how it starts. But you can find this verse, Devavrata Prabhu, if you don't mind, in the Gita, or somebody with the phone. And it mentions that one who is... It indicates one who's innocent. It's in the last quarter of the chapter. How does it start?
Anne tva me jananta srutva yebhya upasati.
Yeah. Keep going.
Tepi chati taranteva mrityum sruti parayana.
Now read the translation. What number is that, please?
1326.
1326. Go ahead.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about Him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
Purport.
This verse is particularly applicable to modern society, because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing because if the common man simply hears from authoritative source, he can progress. Especially, according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one need to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse, particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home.
Just read the translation again, please.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
They're innocent, they're open. And you also do well to analyze the meaning of the 10th offense. All the 10 offenses come from one verse in the Padma Purana. It's one verse that it's split up into 10. And for instance, number 5, consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna be imaginary. What does that mean? It has to do with what I said the other morning. It has very specific meaning that in the Vedic rituals there are absolute statements, for instance, about how the Purnahuti finishes all other duties. And then that someone will say, well, all other duties? That's an exaggeration. And it's rendered as imaginary, but the fact is that it means some kind of an exaggeration. But then the point of the Padma Purana is that there's no exaggeration when it comes to the holy name. My point is there's some subtlety in the meaning there. And if you're trying to match one thing to the other, one concept to another, better be more precise. But yes, please go ahead. It's just a practical experience. We find people all the time who may not have faith. Like we've seen kids, they don't really have faith in the process because what do they know? They're just hanging out. They happen to be born in a family where everyone's doing something, so they just jump in the car and they end up at the temple. And then, after some time, just, they get hooked because they go like, wow, there's something there. That should be on the Atma Rama list. And they didn't have faith in it, but somehow or other, just by participating in it, and they weren't offensive because who are they going to criticize? So maybe it's boring, but that's not offensive. It's just being a kid. But after a while, they just take to it. And this type of person that Krishna's mentioning here, they tend to listen to people. We meet them all the time on Sankirtan. You stop people and it's like, yes, okay, all right. And they fit that definition.
Yeah, thank you very much. I now it's much more clear for me. I also thought, especially when you refer to the 13th chapter verse, this is what, maybe your faith is far away, you have not reached that firm conviction in that sense of Shraddha, firm conviction, but you just come in contact without deliberate offensive mentality, then you'll progress very quickly. And as you said about the subtle meaning, actually the 10th offense is literally saying priti rahito, means without affection or attraction. If you don't have, after hearing for a long time, you don't have any attraction, that implies faith also, but it's different from this.
Similar to that sometimes bewildering sounding verse from the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. How's that start? The steel-framed heart? Yeah, Grihamana Harinamadeya. So this heart's steel-framed. Also, think of what the word Shraddha means, besides what I quoted from the verse. Shrad means the heart. Da, as an active verb, is where you place something. As where you're putting your heart. So somebody's heart might not be in it, in that sense. But it's fine with them. It sounds interesting. Like we see people all the time who come, they have no idea exactly what's going on. They just walk into a program and like the other night, just before we left, we did Salesforce, and we had a program, and people there was a glass partition, and we had about 40 people in the room. We started doing kirtan, and people were walking by on their way to work or lunch, and they look in there and they're like, "Can we come in?" And there were people in there who had never done kirtan, and they had no idea what it was, but they were going along with it. Like, yeah, this is fine. So they didn't have faith in it, because how could they have faith in it? There was nothing to have faith in as far as they're concerned, but they weren't offensive, and they just had a little contact with it, and they walked away like radiated. Prabhu? Oh, whoever's next.
In 164, these 13 types of yogis and munis are called Shanta Bhaktas, for they render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in neutral stage. I'm confused. How do you do devotional service in
Well, there's some
neutrality?
appreciation there. Because if the souls in the Brahman effulgence can do service, which Sanatana Goswami claims they can, in his commentary, said they're sparkling, so they're glorifying the Brahman effulgence. It's the nature of the living entity to do service. So the characteristic of somebody in Shantaras is that they're just awestruck. They're awestruck with God, so they're sitting there appreciating. And what does Kunti say? Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhava. She said, you can go back to Godhead for that one. She said, if you appreciate the devotional service of others, then you get the same result. So that's something.
Hare Krishna.
Getting there.
I did maybe a kind of two-part question. My first part question is, we stopped in this verse and we were relishing it. 196. Let me get to it real quick. This is if a person is actually liberal and intelligent, he can advance to become perfect in devotional service, even if he has material desires, and serves the Lord with some motive. So I'll give you part one and then maybe part two. A little earlier, Prabhupada mentioned, as he was quoting from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, about that devotional service is something that Krishna very rarely gives out because he becomes under control of it. So therefore Krishna tries to see if a devotee is sincere or not. How do we take these two things in congruence with each other, where on one side Krishna is very liberal about that if one has any material desires and maybe even some ulterior desires, he gives them bhakti, but at the same time he doesn't. So how do we reconcile these two things?
Well, first of all, as Prabhupada mentions in the verse, Shripram Bhavati Dharma Chantim Nagachati Konteya Prajijanihi Name Bhakti Pranashati, which is a verse that follows Abhichet Sudarachara, where Krishna said, even if someone has worldliness, if they're properly motivated, they're to be considered sadhus. Because and he says they'll be successful. Shri Prabhupada, very quickly, Shri Prabhupada Dharma, he tells Arjuna, declare it. You say it, Arjuna. These devotees are going to be successful. And then Prabhupada asked the similar question you're asking in the purport there. Say, how can somebody who has material desires be a pure devotee? It's because their motive is perfect. And if they continue on the path, then they'll succeed. And that's the encouragement in a kama, sarva kama va. And also, I think we've heard twice, 3 times already, satyam dishati artitam artito rinam naivartato yat punar artito yata swayam vidate bhajadam anichatam ichapi danam nijapada palavam, which means that Krishna, when petitioned again and again by a person who is on the devotional path for material things, say, give me this, give me that, Krishna said, okay, I'll give it to you, but I'll give it to you in such a way that you won't want it anymore, and you'll want me instead. So Krishna is so accommodating that he knows, he takes the essence, bhavagrahi janardana. If you have some little desire, like Bali Maharaj, when Vaman first came into the assembly, he was thinking, that is the cutest little Brahmana I ever saw in my life. I'd just like to hold him in my arms or something. I want to take him home. And he realized that this is the supreme here. He said, I should be bowing down. But he couldn't, because he was surrounded by all his buddies. And, they're all warped type of people. And he was in the middle of a yajna, so he was a little restrained, but that was what was in his heart. And later on, when he got such a huge benediction, even the devas were saying, how'd that happen? And the Prabhupada answers in Bhavagrahi Janardana, because Krishna saw what was in his heart. Same thing happened with the Avaduta Brahmana. He had, it was the Avanti Brahmana. The Avanti Brahmana had become a wealthy man, but he was a miser. One time he performed a yajna, and in it he had some sentiment for God. What's more, somebody came to him, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, and asked him for a donation for printing some books. He wanted to print Bhagavatam, and he gave a little donation. This is just a plug for Bhadra Purnima. And he did that. And then he lost everything due to his miserliness. His financial empire imploded. But what was left was that seed of devotion that he had felt when he did his yajna, and because he had printed a Bhagavatam set to somebody. And so that set him off on his journey for Krishna. He's famous at Etam Sastaya Paratmanishtam Avyasitabhur Vatamar Maharshivi Amtarishami Turantaparam Tamo Mukundangri Nisheva Yaiva. Lord Chaitanya said that after he took sannyas. The determination, it's what he got from one little seed. So material desires are no match for Krishna, and everybody has them when they first start, unless they're an Nityasiddha. And so Krishna is expert. He's called Vidunoti. He knows how to winnow out the material desires and leave somebody with only himself, Krishna. Yasyaham anagrinnami harishe tadanam shanai tato janam dajant yasya swajano dukadukitam. Prabhupada loved that verse because he'd been through it. Prabhupada had a design on how to serve his spiritual master, and Prabhupada said Krishna dismantled everything. And he quoted this verse, Yasyaham anagrinnami, that Krishna, when he shows his favor, he takes away everything and leaves you helpless, so you have nobody else but Krishna. Okay, there was outside people's party. Oh yeah, Brajaras Pavana.
I was wondering, with you were mentioning that Krishnadas Kaviraj was the one who was quoting these verses. I was under the impression that it was Mahaprabhu himself.
It is, but it's reconstructed by Krishnadas Kaviraj. You know, he went from all the notes and everything like that. So we just say, you know, it's Lord Chaitanya speaking it, but through the pen of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami.
I see. And so like the quotes, or not the quotes, but those verses that are found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is that from the notes essentially, not exactly what Mahaprabhu said? Or it could be both?
No, we could take it as exactly what Mahaprabhu said.
Okay.
It's nicer that way because that's what it says it is.
All right.
And in the case where it seems anachronistic, we already heard one point about how a verse like, wait a minute, that was after Mahaprabhu, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and then Prabhupada explains through Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's explanation that, oh no, that verse has been around. It was around even before Lord Chaitanya. He just brought it out again because a lot of those shastras, they go back thousands of years and the verses are circulated and everybody knows them. So he just included it in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Thank you. The second question I had was on the same verse 196. It says if a person is actually liberal and intelligent, he can advance and become perfect in devotional service, even if he has material desires or serves with a motive. What does it mean by liberal and intelligent in this case?
Intelligent means that, like, there's an old saying, can a fool outsmart a genius? How does a fool outsmart a genius? And the answer is by having a better plan. There's plenty of dysfunctional geniuses in the world. And then the fool who's intelligent in the sense that he says, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to follow Krishna. Krishna says, Sarvadharma Vrajaja, he's simple, and he says, I'm going to follow Krishna. And because I'm not smart, Krishna's smart, I'll just do whatever he says. Or I'll follow the spiritual master. Tvatpada potena mahat kritena. That's the path to success, is you find a great person who's given a path, and then you say, I'll follow that. And that's how you beat the genius. There's plenty of Munis out there speculating about this and that and the other thing, and they don't get anywhere. But the Stita D Muni just says, yeah, no, I'll just follow Krishna. And then he just does that one thing. So that's the intelligence aspect. Well, being liberal is the opposite of being a miser. And as Prabhupada quotes several times from the Garga Samhita, that a miser is somebody who holds on to their material desires in this lifetime and then wastes the best asset anybody ever got, labvam sadur labvam idam bahusambhavante, and they squander it because they're not liberal enough to use this lifetime for Krishna because they're such misers. They just try to keep it for themselves. So someone who's liberal, they're willing to let go of their assets for a higher cause. So that's the opposite of being conservative. All the way in the back? I can't see who it is. Oh. Okay, go ahead, Akshina Mangal, and then we'll go to the back. And then we're done.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. One of my question you already had answered. It's related to the same purport and translation of 196 and also 172. The other question is in the translation of text 213. So, does these yogis attain the perfectional platform and do not enter into the cycle of birth and death again, and they are liberated through the mystic yogi process? What kind of liberation do they get?
Well, Prabhupada answers that in the 8th chapter of the Gita when he talks about statement in answer to Krishna's in his commentary on Krishna's statements about yogis who position themselves to leave during Shuklo. What's the verse? Yeah, there's a way to align yourself with the bright demigods, and they have a clear path where you can get liberation if you do it at the right time. But Prabhupada gives every indication that those types of mechanical liberation don't last. What? Shuklo Krishna Gati Yete Jagata Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yat Janavritim Anyaya Vartate Punaha. Anyway, it's in that section of the 8th chapter that he describes how that kind of liberation through mystic yoga may not be permanent. And it depends what kind of situation. It's individual. That's a categorical statement, but there are individual cases. It's not stereotype. Different people have different situations. Durvasa Muni went to the Vaikunthas, but he didn't get to stay there. He got chased out. Okay? And
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I was a little lost in terms of because Mahendra Prabhu's voice was not very clear. Was the discussion about the fact that to maintain material attachments is an offense to the holy name? At the same time, it says if someone who has material attachments should also perform pure devotional service. If they perform, they'll get the result.
No, it wasn't exactly like that. He said, if you don't have complete faith and you maintain material attachments. And then he was juxtaposing that with the idea that these 5 processes of devotional service are so powerful that even if you don't have faith in them, that you'll be successful.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I just had the same question Prabhu asked before about liberation and intelligent, what the meaning. But just on follow up on that, so where does exactly the distinction lies between Mishra Bhakti and Shuddha Bhakti, and when does Krishna purifies the motive to serve him, if you know what I mean, according to the verse 196?
Well, I mean, Krishna can help us along, but we have to purify our own motive. Motive comes from us. And at some point, we make a decision to surrender to Krishna. It has to be a conscious decision. It doesn't happen in your sleep. It happens in a moment of revelation. Some people have that revelation when they're challenged, or when they have a moment of lucidity, or it dawns on them gradually that Krishna's so kind that he's given him everything, and he feels safe in just completely giving himself to Krishna. And when one uses one's free will and says, Krishna, to me you're everything, and I don't want anything else. And even if one's entangled in the material world at that point, if one has that clarity that I really don't want anything else but Krishna, then everything else will be rectified in one's life, because that's what's most important, is one's clarity that comes from one, that this is my choice and I'm motivated to serve Krishna. And even if I'm held back for 1,000,000 lifetimes, I still know that that's the only thing I want. And that's the most important aspect of devotional service, and that's the meaning of apichet sudaracharo. If somebody has that determination, Even if they're sudaracharo, they're really, really messed up and entangled in the material world, Krishna says they're going to be successful because they have that motivation in their heart. So we have to, we should find it. And that's where prayer comes about, or the perfection of prayer is because we may not even know it's in there. It's like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. There's so many material desires and other thoughts, but if you can somehow or other find that one pure intention that I just want you, Krishna, nothing else, then that's the fulcrum of all power for one's advancement in devotional service. Om Tat Sat. It smells like there's a forest fire going on. Huh? Burning plastic? Well, what could go wrong with that? Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, if you so desire, please give us pure motivation or clarity and encouragement to find our own pure motivation to completely surrender to your lotus feet. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Haribo. 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Vanchakalpatarishcha kripasinnavevicha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnaviniki jai. We'll be back here at 3:59 for the penultimate reading of the entire Madhya Lila.
So even if you hear the glories of the holy, it's still the point of